Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, May 25th at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to call the special school board meeting to order, and we'll just start with roll call.
Charles Black-Lance.
Here.
Tom Hagelund.
Here.
Ruth Nelson.
Here.
Jana Shogren.
Here.
Sarah Spear.
Here.
And Kevin Boyles. 5 of the 6 present.
Okay, thank you, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, where'd it go?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That'll look good on camera.
It's gonna go viral now.
Just to let you know that this meeting is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statutes 13D.02, and people may monitor this meeting from a remote location by watching YouTube Live, and it is also being recorded and will be made available on the district's website as soon as possible. And right now, just because of the horrific things that happened down in Texas at Robb Elementary and Uvalde, and I'm sorry if I said that wrong, school district, I'd just like to take a moment of silence for the community and the people down there. Okay, thank you. And Superintendent Larson will talk more about this, but I just want you also to know that we will do everything we can to keep our children safe in their schools. So next up, we have the motion of the agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
First from Director Hagelund, a second from Director Black-Lance. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next up, we have recognitions, and there are quite a bit. We have it's that exciting time of year. So I think maybe we should go around the table and just take turns congratulating after each of these. So first is the student athletes that signed letters of intent on May 18th for their sports. And I'll start with Avery Anacala. She's going to Southwest Minnesota State University for tennis.
Dalton Barrett, Winona State football.
Jada Benson, the University of Minnesota Duluth for dance.
Mitch Deegan, St. John's University for basketball.
Riley DeRozier, St. John's University football.
Cam Engblom, Mayville State basketball.
Bryn Folden, University of Minnesota Duluth tennis.
Quinn Garrett, St. Thomas University dance.
And Adam Jensen, Central Lakes College for baseball.
Kylie Johnson, St. Olaf College basketball.
Cam Langerham, Gustavus Adolphus College football.
Avery Lemire, Gustavus Adolphus College hockey.
Maya Nelson, St. Benedict University track.
Cade Roosevelt, St. Cloud State University swimming.
Taylor Rule, Gustavus Adolphus College for tennis.
Liliana Schaefer, College of St. Scholastica Nordic ski.
Emma Todges, Central Lakes College softball.
Olivia Touches, St. Benedict University softball.
And Gabe Wagner, University of St. Mary wrestling. So congratulations to all those student athletes. And next up, we have students that were selected for the MMEA All-State Ensemble to perform in August and February. And we have Abigail Benson, clarinet, All-State Orchestra.
Eric Hibbert, baritone saxophone, all-state concert band.
Elizabeth Jock, alto saxophone, all-state concert band too.
And Grace Wood, percussion, all-state alternate.
Okay, wonderful. Congratulations to all of those. So it's a fun time of year, really fun time of year for that stuff. Okay, next up, we do not have public input because this is a special school board meeting, and we will be talking about that later in the agenda. So we have the approval of the minutes from the regular school board meeting on May 9th.
So moved.
A second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Schroeder. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we have the consent calendar.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
First from Director Schober and a second from Director Blacklands. Any discussion? I'd just like to say I noticed that one of our longtime principals is on there, and he will be missed.
You will.
Todd Sauer, yeah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign, motion carries. And next up, we have Lane Larson about approval of the administrative recommendation to issue a 2022-2023 contract to the following certified staff members.
Do you want them listed?
Sure.
Okay. Jody Converse, Carly Clicker, Laura Lind, Timothy Hansky, Anthony Tideman, Curtis Brisk, McKinley Anderson, Tanya Dill, Erica Embertson, Cody Ewald, Katie Maines, Amy Smith, Heather Bakke, Lori DeVell, Travis Moeller, Joseph Muehlbauer, sorry about that, Janet Ortberg, Elaine Sandberg, and Michael Summerness. And one of the things that I'd like to say about this is something new that we've just started in the last 5 years, but it's recognizing the teachers that have met the criteria of 3 successful years of teaching in the profession within Brainerd Public Schools, or they've had 3 years somewhere else and have successfully completed an awesome year with Brainerd Public Schools for 1 year, and now are granted that next step in their professional career of being granted tenure. And that's really a big deal in the life of a teacher. And so I want to take this time to congratulate all these people, and a letter will be sent to each of these people in commendation from the Board of Education. So congratulations to all of them.
Wonderful, congratulations. And we need a motion to approve this list.
I'll make a motion to approve the list.
Second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Hagelin. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign, motion carried. And next up, we have Mark Needham and Reed Teesey, I think is here, maybe not. Just you, I guess you're on your own, Mark.
Reed's here.
Oh, okay. To talk about Wesby.
There we go. And then, there we go. Okay. Mark Needham with ICS, as you know. And so we're getting this spun up here. There we go, perfect. So we're presenting Wesby here today for the construction documents to approve those and then to solicit bids for these starting here this week, or send out the advertisement for bid and then set up dates for, or go through the dates for opening bids. So to go through the project here, so this is the kind of our cover page, right? The Wesby construction document presentation, just a quick overview of the north half and south half of the building there. The first part of the job that we've talked through and developed is the safe and secure entrance. Couple things that we've done with this: we've updated the access control, so doors and hardware. The fishbowl that we've talked about so many times, being able to control who comes in and has access to the building. So we have windows set up and intercoms and everything that we need for that. So that's we're following the kind of the district standard there. We also moved the drop-off for students from the Oak Street and kind of where it's really congested out on this road back to Pine Street. So that's that small box to the bottom of the page there. And along with that comes the wheelchair lift access for ADA purposes, and then refiguring the stairs there because they're in pretty poor shape and not usable. I believe they're roped off right now. So bringing those back up to code. We also addressed the Welcome Center and looked at the office spaces within there, and you can kind of see kind of towards the right and left of the center of the building there. Updated the reception areas, office spaces, conference rooms to make us efficient there. And then also updated the multi-purpose room to support Tornstrom or whatever type of functions that we may have, whether it's, you know, landing spaces for additional staff or events or whatever it may be. So it's a good multi-purpose space. And then the finishes, we updated those in a way that mimic or maybe honor the historic finishes of the building, right? So it's not a stark contrast from what we have in, now to something totally different. So there, we kind of stayed with that theme as far as the finishes and shapes of entryways and things of that nature. We have specifically called out some doors to be custom doors that won't, I guess, stand out like a sore thumb, right? So tried to be considerate of that with the building. Next is the ADA bathroom updates. So this slide here shows just the main level, but we're doing these for all the floors where we have bathrooms. So we highlighted those on the left, and then on the right are some examples of finishes and layouts and things of that nature. But the idea here was to adjust the layout for all the bathrooms to meet ADA compliance, because right now they're pretty cramped with the partitions that we have and the fixtures that we have. Also, like I mentioned, fixtures, so we'll have new plumbing fixtures there that are more efficient than what we have now, and then also the right and correct heights for the people using them. And then, again, maintaining kind of the historic finish. If you look towards the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a tile layout that matches what we have in there now, so it's not going to be a stark contrast to the rest of the building. It'll fit in nice, so it'll be, again, maintaining that theme. Next section was the indoor air quality and the boiler room update. So this is more or less the meat and potatoes of the project. So here we're going to be updating the ventilation system and the boiler plants. So here the picture shown is a general idea. This is going to be this here's main floor, and then everything in kind of that turquoise color is where the ceilings are going to come down and be replaced, and the ventilation is going to be redone through all those spaces and controls and everything that goes with it. And then that green box is the boiler room, where there's going to be quite a bit of work taking place in there to replace the steam boilers with updated steam boilers that are far more efficient and far smaller. So. Other items for that, yeah, the ceilings there, that's kind of a big one. In the hallways, we're going to see ceilings added. So right now, if you look out in the hallways, we don't have any ACT or the acoustical ceilings in there now, but that's because we have to run the ventilation through the hallways to get it into the room. So you'll see acoustical ceilings, and that'll also clean up a lot of the data drops and things like that you see, the infrastructure that you can see up there now.
How high will the ceilings be?
I have 9 foot, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, a lot lower then.
3 inches over
Yeah.
the top of the arches of the doorways.
Oh, that'll be really low.
It'll be lower, yes. Yeah, it's higher than we have in other parts of other schools. We do have some shorter ceiling heights in other schools, but when you compare it here, I mean, that's the challenge we have is all the ventilation for this building is contained in these walls. It's all sandwiched in between these walls, and short of taking all the walls out in this building, there's no way to access that ductwork. And also, the ductwork that is in the walls is undersized for today's code. So we have to add supplemental ductwork to this building to get the ventilation up to today's code standards. So there's no way of providing indoor air quality improvements without providing that additional ductwork.
It's kind of sad, because it's part of the character of this building is the high ceilings when you're in the hallways.
It's really the only option, again, really the only option we have without tearing the walls down, shrinking classrooms, or shrinking hallways. We don't have another way of doing it.
Majorly invasive, and even then we would still need overhead space to run some sort of ventilation across hallways, and we'd still be lowering the ceiling. And if it's not 9 foot, maybe it's 9'6", and is the cost worth that 6 inches? So that's kind of what drove it, is how do we branch out all of our ventilation into these rooms and provide the control that we need without doing that. So that's a generation of it.
And that is heating and cooling. So all of the mini splits that you see on the building would be taken down, and we'd patch the holes and provide heating and cooling year round. for this building.
So like in this room, what would the ceilings go to? Like where, just,
this
I
will
like to
stay-
visualize.
This will stay.
This will stay the same, okay,
But in the hallway, it'll be
Just
just
the hallways?
above the 208.
okay.
It'll be higher than that, Lane. That's 7 feet, so it's gonna be, the ceiling heights will probably be closer to what these ceilings are in here.
Did you say it was gonna be 6 inches above the door frames?
3 inches, no, 3 inches above the arches of the doors. So when you walk it down the hall and you look
Okay.
at it, the
Okay.
door is
Okay.
7 foot tall, and then that arch extends probably 18 to 24 inches above the door. We're 3 inches above that.
Okay.
So
So that gives us a better
it would
visual.
be about this height is
Okay.
9 feet.
For reference, we're probably closer to the red fire alarm box there.
Yeah.
Great.
Will there be different air in here too, in this room?
Everything on first and second floor
Every
will
room
Right.
on first
have
and
a new
second floor.
HVAC system. Third floor, you guys did before I came, so.
Yep.
It'll be the first 2 floors that.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the estimate here. So the latest construction documents estimate that we have is at $9,247,000.
So, Mark, I'm
Oh,
gonna
go ahead.
pause you, just from a standpoint for the board members that aren't on project oversight and maybe don't see this budget document, every day or often, you're gonna wanna read this from right to left from a
Yeah,
timeline
and-
standpoint. So right was our initial estimate, and then we move left to today is how we're going through this, so.
Yeah, I'll walk us through the progression and how we got to where we're at today. Speaking generally, the estimate has trended down from where we initially started at programming and schematic design. And that's driven by a handful of things. At programming, we knew that we needed to move the entrance off of Oak Street to, get off the busy street, right? So that was one of our key design elements that we needed to follow. We had indoor air quality and the bathrooms and a few other things. So as we have continued to develop the design, right, as we got into schematic and design development, we identified, we were initially thought to get the entrance off of Oak Street and back to Pine, that it was going to be a significant demo of the gymnasium and the bleachers and adding a whole bunch of structural steel and building slabs, and it was a significant amount of work. And after reviewing that, we continued to find ways to do that without having to do all of that additional work. And we've talked at schematic design and design development about what that looks like and why we're not going to demo the gym and tear out all those bleachers. So that's why we've seen the progression down from schematic design to design development. And so where we're at now at construction documents, we're back up, but that's because as we continue to add detail to the design for like specifically the Lula lift at the south entrance for that ADA access to get students up past the stairs that otherwise they'd have to come around to Oak to get into the building on. Identifying, okay, how does that actually work with that elevated slab we have in the rear of the building, and how does that tie in with structural steel and masonry and all the different details that go with that. So as we got smarter about that, we were able to add more detail and have a much more accurate estimate on that. Overall, we're still lower than what our budget is, so we're still meeting what we need for a budget standpoint, but have trended down. And I guess to kind of continue to build on that, being lower than what we expected is where we want to be because we have an incredibly volatile market right now. So that gives us a little bit of grace period there too, or space to be able to address some of the market concerns that we expect to see or may see, depending on, it's different today than it was last week. So, yeah, any questions on the estimate?
So, but the estimate, you've kind of estimated on the high side because of that volatility.
Yes, yep, so I've spoken with local contractors to try and get, what are we looking at for unit rates for these types of materials, this type of work, and just to try and stay up to date with where we're at too, and that's also part of the uptick that we're seeing there as well. And trying to prepare for, the unknowns. And so we've done some of that. And also being lower than what our original budget is too also helps with some of that. So all that to say, I feel like we have done everything we can to prepare ourselves for bid day, so.
Yeah, but it's still very uncertain.
Right.
We know that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
One other thing I just thought of as we were going through here, in the back where we have that new entrance, will you make sure those steps, I know Tom had brought up the Garfield steps, how narrow they were, and I know we don't have a lot of space there, so these are gonna be little kids going up those steps, so let's be really careful with how we design those steps.
And that,
Your staff are gonna come in and out there too. That's really a good point,
Yeah.
because those Garfield ones are.
And the ones that are at Garfield are being corrected.
Redone, I
Yes,
know,
we
yeah.
know that those are not where we need them to be right now. They weren't installed as we wanted them to
To
be.
her point, because we're limited in space,
Yeah,
we
it's
wanna
gonna-
make sure that they're big enough.
Yep.
That we're keeping.
They'll be
in mind.
exactly as they were.
yeah, we're not gonna change the size of them to, we're not making them any smaller than they are today.
Just being
so,
replaced.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk project schedule here quickly. So the work, we're planning to start the project here in early October with a week of move-out activities, and we'll work through that like we typically do. And then also have a placeholder there for the Welcome Center to make sure that that will be up and running for the next school year as well, so we're not trying to relocate them while they're trying to get students signed up for the following school year. So after, I guess, the big push of those activities is done is when we start moving those folks out as well. So into October gives us time, I think, to account for that. And then notably here towards, the end, if we're talking milestones, having the school back open with move-in time for the following year in 2023. So you can see there towards the bottom, September 1st being the final day of construction there, but knowing that we'll have punch list owner move-in and a substantial completion in the beginning of August. Any questions on schedule?
When can this building move back in? Not till September 1st?
No, not until the beginning of August. So punch list and owner move-in, that last activity there is scheduled from 8/7 to 9/1. That's month is our window to get moved back in.
So August 4th technically is the.
Yeah, would be the last.
That'll
Yeah.
make it
Formal
tough for
construction.
next summer with Tim's program and those kinds of
And that's
things. But
the conversation we have to have is which departments are appropriate to move in August, or which ones come in October, or whatever it might mean to that
Well-
department, so that they have their operation up and running when they need to be up and running.
And we have, right now the plan is to have the schedule move from first, second to third floor, right? So if there's an opportunity that we need to identify and say, okay, we need more time because Tim's got a lot of, educational material to move in, can we identify that space? And there's more than a year to work out that plan and identify that. So if we need to work with the city and identify a temporary move-in plan like we've done before, then I think there's opportunity to do that as well.
But it's safe to say that trainings and that kind of thing for next summer won't be in this building. So that'll, like you said, it'll give
Yep.
a year to
Yep.
figure out where all of that professional development will take place.
And again, this schedule is just a high level milestone schedule right now. I mean, it's gonna depend upon lead times of equipment and all of that stuff, because again, the volatility of that stuff is crazy right now, so.
Yeah.
It really will depend. If I pressure Mark enough, if we can push this ahead, we will gain every day we possibly can on this schedule, but we're just trying to be as conservative as possible right now and not overcommit to getting spaces ready when it might be out of our hands, so.
Yeah, I would plan that it's not gonna be done then because of delays of equipment.
Yeah, I would
But
too.
just,
And that's where we would keep the temporary locations until the timing is appropriate to move the departments back.
And speaking in terms of procurement too, what we have on our side here is this is not a 3-month schedule where we shoehorn everything in as fast as we possibly can. We have a little more time to think about and be aware of the details. So this is over 9 months instead of 3 months, so there's some time to adjust for things.
And we're doing more than this in 3 months right now at the high school. So it's a feasible project for sure, for certain.
The last one.
Yes, indeed.
Last project.
Oh, and then appendix, the documents and specs and estimate and schedule have all been, I believe, in the board book, so.
Okay.
Close.
And then bid opening will be the 21st of June
21st,
at
yep.
2 o'clock.
That's the
So,
plan.
Okay.
See where we land.
be great.
Yep. So I need a motion to approve these documents.
I'll move to approve.
Thank you.
Second?
Thank you. First from Director Blackland, second from Director Hagelin. Any further questions or discussions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. You got a lot on your plate, Mr. Needham.
Like it that way. Keeps me busy.
Okay, okay, I see that. Okay, and next up, we have the resolution for membership in our state high school league, and I see that Mr. Freeman is here, so if he would like to come up, that would be great. I think this should be pretty quick. Yeah, we have the document here, but I don't think it includes the pricing in it.
We got an email about the pricing though.
Did we? Okay.
Yeah, I sent it this morning to
Okay.
all of you, but I asked if he would come just to acknowledge
Okay.
it. So.
So essentially, the pricing is going to stay the exact same as last year.
Oh.
Which was good news. We ended up getting money back in August. We got a per activity fee credit. We got $65 back for every activity that we were signed up for. The original fee last year was $225, and they gave us a $65 per activity fee credit back for all of those. So it was a little over $2,000 that we got credited back to us.
Okay.
The pricing for next year is projected to be the exact same as this year. So that's $165 per activity that we register for
Okay.
through the league
Wonderful.
with our membership. So
That's good news.
not a lot of change. And I was on the phone with a member from the State High School League today, and it sounds like this is projected for worst case scenario. And they're hoping that with their tournament revenues, they'll be able to give us an additional credit back next year. So.
Good.
So the total is $13,599.20, is that what I remember?
That's correct. And that's, again, the worst case scenario that they're projecting for, with the hope that, again, we'll get an additional credit back.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Any questions for? Okay. Need a motion to approve
I
this?
move to approve the 2022-23 resolution for membership in the Minnesota State High School League as presented.
I'll second. First from Director Blacklands, a second from Director Schogren. Any additional comments or discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call vote.
Tom Hagelin,
Yes.
Ruth Nelson,
Yes.
Jana Shogren,
Yes.
Sarah Spear,
Yes.
Charles Blacklands.
Yes.
All present are in favor.
Thank you. So the motion carries. Next up, we have ratification of the clerical contract. Hi.
Hey, Angie.
See you all. Yes, Angie's here in spirit with you all. Angie did provide a summary in your board memo regarding the ratification of the clerical contract. Some things we'd like to highlight is we're very appreciative of the clerical unit. They did do a 3-year settlement, which since I've stepped in the assistant super role, I think all I've done is negotiate in 4 years. So it's really nice to start to see some of these beginning off cycle so we can stagger that a little bit more and I think have much more meaningful process as we move forward. You'll see that the percent increase stays consistent. Like we said, we've been trying to do that across negotiation units and groups. And this group did negotiate in addition to their 403B, which hasn't been consistent across, so they did get an increase of a $25 match with this unit. But they voted in. As with the other plans, we've also opened and accessed up all the insurance plans. So that's now consistent across all units as well.
Will this always be a 3-year, or did they negotiate a 3-year just to get in an off cycle and go back to a 2-year?
it's always open for negotiation. But it was nice because it's predictability in the budget, but it did, from a negotiation standpoint, from the district side, it's very beneficial when we're working with so many different units. So they were the third unit to agree to a 3-year contract, which will assist us greatly.
I'll move to approve the clerical contract as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first from Director Hagelin, a second from Director Spear. Any further discussion?
Just a comment about the 3-year contract. I think that's excellent, Heidi and Angie, for hopefully getting all of our groups in a 3, and maybe we can eventually get longer too, because it's not only is it good for the district as a budgeting standpoint, but it's good for the staff to know too. So it's good when we have places.
Yeah, and they were open again because we basically were expired in a year. So that gave motivation to let's get to that 3-year. But I think we are starting to see more of that direction and openness from our staff. So thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Anything else? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And we'll go on to the food service contract.
So this is also, we're very excited that this group, this was a lengthy group that took us quite a while to navigate. Largest reasoning, if you look at their beginning wages that were on step 1, they were quite dismal. So we've been trying to work at competitive starting wages, and you've seen that happen across a couple of our units. So we did get that starting step 1 wage up, but we also have some very veteran staff, so that was having to navigate that. But you'll see the starting wage go up. Then we also had a slight increase to the longevity wage to kind of offset then that increase to the starting wage, with hopes of being able to recruit and maintain more food service staff within our organization. But the details are there for you.
Do we have quite a high turnover in the staff?
Actually, we do not. We have a very long-standing food service staff. However, when you look at that entry step 1, that's where we see the turnover because of that low wage. So similar to what we did within our para unit, we really tried to get that first step 1 first year wage up to a competitive wage within the area, and we made movement towards that. We still have movement, I believe, to go in food service and paraprofessionals in particular, but this was a great step. Their unit did a nice job in advocating for all staff. So that should hopefully get us hopefully more recruitment and retainment in that first year. But no, it's fasting. The staff that come here stay here. Once a warrior, always a warrior. And this has had some long-standing staff.
I would move to approve the ratification of the food service contract for 2021 through 2023.
I'll second.
A first from Director Shoger and a second from Director Blacklance on approving the food service contract. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So we are officially, as of May 25th, 2022, caught up on all of our contracts. Now, some expire June 30th, but for now, we have about 5 weeks of being caught up.
Enjoy your 7 days or whatever.
Month, yeah.
Okay, next up we have discussion and approval of our public input procedures. And this was based on the fact that a couple months ago we didn't have any public comment because our regular school board meeting time was changed. So Superintendent Larson has worked on the contract, and do you want to talk about the changes that you made?
Yeah, I can. Actually, the contract stays exactly the same. All it is a procedure, and this verbiage is certainly open to deliberation. But what we added to it is if a regular school board meeting is changed in date and or time, the Board of Education may allow a public comment period to resume according to the parameters outlined below and as determined by the board. This change ensures that there will be one public comment period per month at a scheduled meeting of the Board of Education of ISD 181. So if the meeting gets changed for some reason and it's not considered a regular meeting, you can still make that determination that we're going to change the date or the time of that regular meeting, but we're going to allow public comments so that you at least have public comment once a month.
Would there be any reason not to just, if the date and or time change, it just automatically they will allow for public comment rather than may?
You
Is there
can
any reason
do that
not
too.
to do that?
So it should be will instead of may?
That's what I'm
It's changed
thinking, that it's just an automatic. If we change the date and time,
Yeah.
if we call a special meeting, maybe it doesn't happen there, but
Right.
if a regular meeting date or time has changed.
I think the only thing we'd have to change to the verbiage I gave you is change may to will.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Makes it
And then you
clear.
don't have to worry about it. It's just a
It'll
done
happen.
deal. Yep. That'd be great.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the revision to the public input and procedures and the time, place, and manner guidelines for public input, which is incorporated with the MSBA policy number 206.
I'll second.
First from Director Spear, a second from Director Sjogren. Any further discussion?
Do we have to say amended, or because we added the verbiage, or is that just?
Revising the public.
Is your
As
motion
amended?
with the?
With the amendment.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
thank you.
Director Sjogren, you're good with that?
Yes, I
Yes,
am.
okay. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I know that Director Boyles will be very happy with that, too.
Good, thank you for taking care of that.
Okay, and next up is discussion and approval regarding alcohol requests at the Gitche ZV Center for the Arts. If approved, to bring forth changes to policy 902 procedures by the June 13th meeting. And I was not at the board meeting when you guys discussed this, but I did make it a point to listen to that discussion. So I think I'm up to speed on where we're at with that.
And I would maybe just start by saying, I think we received a ton of feedback on this, which I think was incredible. Good input, good discussion. I felt like the community was really engaged in a partnership on this. So I was super pleased. I know it's a lot to read through, but I was glad to do it and had a lot of personal discussions around this as well. So I just wanted to point out that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think we had two different types of communication. We had what appears to be a MailChimp, which was a mass emailing from people within the group, and that's why we got a lot of the I support whatever the heading was. So and to me that was already a group from where I sit that we already heard that they had a special seat at a board meeting 2 weeks ago. So to me that was a bit redundant. We already knew their thought, that particular group.
But, I think they sent it out to everyone that's on their email list, and we did get some negatives. They were majority positives, but we got some negatives too from that. So I think they weren't all of one mind, that group.
Outside of that, I did receive a lot of other emails from the community, which is great. But from where I sat, and maybe it was just because I took the stance that I took, but I received more for the negative of allowing alcohol into the Gitche ZV than the positives. But.
Yeah. If you took those Lakes Area Musical Festival people out that all had the same, I thought it was pretty similar, pro and con. But yeah. Kevin Boyles, who was, talked quite a bit at the last one, also sent an email that I'll read. I apologize for not being able to attend today's meeting and missing the vote on this issue. My own personal stance on approving the one-time policy exception for the Lakes Area Music Festival this summer could be described as indifferent. Given my own indifference on the matter, I'm going to voice my support for allowing the one-time exception based solely upon the volume of supportive communication that I've seen from the community. I believe the majority of the public supports the approval of this exception. That is not to say that I would support making this a regular thing. I'm not advocating for changing the district policy, as I believe that we need to be mindful of balancing the utilization and return on investment of the Gitche ZV as a publicly owned venue against the fundamental need to serve and protect the learning environment. I think we also need to be mindful that in our quest to best utilize the Gitche ZV, that we do not unwittingly put the school district into direct competition with privately owned local venues that can host certain types of events. Many view this as a slippery slope, but I challenge that notion. The board can prevent sliding, but we owe it to the community to explore the best way to operate this facility in a way that is equally socially and fiscally responsible. I want to ensure that we don't muddle the exception that's being discussed here today with the broader policy. I believe that CLC has similar policies and has approved similar variances in the past within their facility. So this is far from unprecedented or unmanageable. If present today, I would have voted in favor of the one-time variance. I want to thank the community for coming forward and sharing their thoughts, since this is what helped me to arrive at my personal view. Everyone deserves the opportunity to be heard, and I believe that this board has acted appropriately in the process that we choose to follow. It has been encouraging and refreshing to see such thoughtful viewpoints from across the spectrum. Kevin Boyles. So that, just wanted to get that into the record before we continue to discuss.
And just to clarify, I think that, well, we could act in different ways, although this is a special board meeting, right?
It's on the agenda, so I think we can.
But it's not, I don't know that I'm reading it the same way Kevin commented on it. I don't know that what's on the agenda is a one-time exemption, isn't it, to change the policy or change the policy 902 procedures?
What's on it today is if you vote to allow alcohol, currently our policy 902 does not allow for alcohol. So what I'm asking you to do is to provide, if you vote for it, to provide me with guidance that I can work with legal counsel to adjust the policy so that it fits what you believe the parameters should be for use of alcohol in it. And I know Ruth came in prior to this meeting and said, this might be the first time we bring it, if this is passed, that with changes, but it's going to be probably a policy that will be in continuous updating based on things that we learn through the implementation of it.
Right, and I think there's a lot of, we have to consider fees, you know, there's, our fees first off are not right already, and then if we're gonna allow them to serve food and or alcohol in that facility, there should probably be additional fees. We don't have any of that in it right now. Plus, you know, one of the things I said is maybe this is a summertime only exception that we make. You know, maybe during the school year, it's a school facility. In the summer, it's more of a public use facility. Just one thought, and that's what we have to continue to discuss. So I would rather, I'm kind of a little bit in Kevin's camp on this, although that I don't want this to be an ongoing thing until we've had more time to process it and see how it goes. And so I'm fine, my own personal, I'm fine with Lakes Area Music Festival, allowing them to do this. I think they're a quality organization, but I think we need to look at fees and we need to see how it goes and spend some more time before we expand it to other organizations. And there's a whole variety of organizations. There's symphonies, there's rock bands, you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could come into that facility. So I think it has a lot more discussion ahead.
And for me, oh, go ahead.
But just based on what I've read from public comment, the public seems overall to be in favor. They both, good points on both sides. Go ahead.
And I was just gonna say, you know, for me, it didn't feel like an issue of alcohol. Obviously, that's a very big deal. I would never be for having alcohol in school grounds, and I think this is a very different ask. For me, this is about the community's trust in what we asked for when we put that third question on the ballot, and all of our arts community came out and said, we're not gonna build our own performing arts center, we're gonna partner with the school, and this is gonna be fantastic. And, you know, for school and students, the Performing Arts Center is going to put on their Performing Arts Center hat. And for the community, it's going to put on its community hat. And we'll all get what we want out of this. And I feel like if they would have asked, hey, can we bring in monkeys, that we should consider that. Because we said we're going to be a good partner in this. We said we're going to come to the table and hold up our end of the bargain to support the arts and support what that experience they expected out of this building is. I know it's connected to our school because that's really convenient for us, and they put all of their eggs in this basket. And I think for us to not honor that would be, you know, a bait and switch. And so it is alcohol they're asking for, it's not monkeys. And I am putting aside all of my personal and, you know, I've got all kinds of perspectives I bring to the table and putting on my group, you know, as a team, how we need to present ourselves to this community and how we need to partner with them to build trust. And that's how I'm viewing this.
Okay, thank you for adding that. That was good. Good thoughts. I'd also like to say when we designed this, we did put doors and locks and everything so it can be separated from the
Yes.
school part of the
And
facility.
I think that would be something we want to spell out.
And we purposefully did that, so.
And I want to be crystal clear too, that for anybody who might be confused, because I read some comments that I wonder if people are confused, I would never vote yes for serving alcohol before a high school choir concert or the Wizard of Oz play that we saw. This is strictly when it's an outside of school district use. This is another entity coming in and hosting an event. So I just want to be crystal clear in case anybody is concerned that.
And they take care of the catering, they
Yes.
take care of the liability, they take care of everything to do
And the
with it.
space, like we said, is separate for that night. It's locked down in essence from the school portion of our building.
And I agree, this is going to be bumpy. I think we're new at this. We've not done this before. We know going into this policy can be revised and probably, like we said, will continue to be revised as we learn and get smarter about, you know, we're trusting the community with this and have the expectation of 1, 2, 3, whatever that is. And I think as we learn more about how that goes, we can make more policy revisions.
I've got a host of comments I'd like to make that are contrary probably to what many of you have said. So they're a little bit random. One thing I just want to point out is that, you know, this policy was reviewed after 3 readings barely 2 years ago and put in place with no alcohol to be served after 3 readings. So I'm concerned that we think we have to quickly make an exception so we can let an organization come in and serve alcohol without doing due diligence. I kind of, even hearing comments today, it feels like, well, let's just approve it and then we'll kind of fix things as we go. So I'm really concerned that we would not do a proper due diligence to see if someday we were to change this, that we figure out all the ramifications. The other thing is that regarding trust and transparency and what we committed to with our community, we need to keep in mind that if it wasn't for question number 2, number 3 would have never happened. Number 2 had to happen. We were going to build, I forget the exact details, but a 800 or 900 seat stadium. You know, we're planning to do that, and largely because we looked at that as a safety factor. We didn't want our high school students walking from the high school to Torrance. And so it's a big reason that we did that, and we just went with number 3 as an offering that we could enhance it if we wanted to enhance it, if the community wanted to enhance it. You know, the comments, and I agree with what you said, Charles. We saw, you know, a paste and copy comments. Eventually, I caught on to that, and I did respond to a couple and just simply asked, are you a member of our district? And the answer was no. So I was frankly disappointed with that there weren't many written comments pro or against it. So I was kind of disappointed in that. I think we have a lot of work to do if we someday we're going to allow it, fees being one of them. You know, liability is another. This policy says we've got to have a maintenance staff person on site at all times, which is that's a huge deal. You know, on an already strained maintenance staff. So that's would be another concern of mine. And this, in my mind, has nothing to do with Lakes Area Music Festival. This has to do, you know, globally. So we should never, I would be shocked as a board that we'd say, well, we'll make an exception and then we'll figure out things later. once you make that exception, you're married to that, and that's going to be a tough one to figure out later. So I think about as if I own a bar or a restaurant or just a business person, can I hire a rock band and have a concert at PAC and keep all the proceeds from serving alcohol? What about the Don Adamson Field, 4th of July? Is there a reason that, what are we going to do when we get asked, hey, we'd like to, we're going to put on a concert during the parade. We'd like to serve alcohol. We're going to be hit constantly with these exceptions if we don't get a tight policy. So I'm concerned about that as well. It eventually became disturbing to me after getting all of these repeated emails that, and the statement says, I believe that the option to enjoy a glass of wine or cocktail before a concert can enhance the concert experience. And I'm thinking, really? You need that to enhance your experience? What are we telling our students, our young adults? That by having alcohol, your enjoyment will be enhanced? It seems like we're just really sending the wrong message. In fact, if you look at our policy, I think it's number 4.2, we talk about, there's reference in there about, this would just completely go against that. I think there's a fallacy. There was a couple of comments about, in fact, there was one comment about that it's the school board's job to look for ways to supplement revenue. That's far from the truth. I don't think we could, we're not in the business to provide entertainment. We want to cover our costs whenever the facility is used, but we have no idea what that cost is going to be when we bring in potential other organizations. There was a lot of compliments about, I believe Lakes Area Music Festival can manage the, serving of alcohol. And there was discussion before about the age group, and there aren't many kids there. But we've got to be thinking beyond that. We've got to be thinking about any group that comes in, because we don't want to put our superintendent or designee in a position of saying yes to one and no to another. And I really think that's going to be by making an exception, we're just opening up. It's beyond a slippery slope. It's very, very concerning. I really think if we're we went through 3 readings to establish the policy 2 years ago. I think if we want to consider something different, we have to do the due diligence. I would ask that our facilities director, who's ever managing PAC, and other groups do research with other district facilities like this throughout the state to see how they are handling these types of things. I think for us to have a narrow focus and get right down to, we're going to let Lakes Area Music Festival serve alcohol at the Gitche ZB is nothing but disastrous. And we really need to do this right and not just, well, they've got a schedule, we've got to hurry up and get it approved. So I'm dead set against moving forward with this.
I feel I'd like to echo what Director Hagelin had to say. I agree with that, and many of those concerns are concerns that I bring to the table, but also some, Director Hagelin, that I hadn't thought of. I appreciate that as well. The others that have shared, I definitely admire your advocacy and attempt to provide color to a difficult conversation, and that's important. And but we're at a place again with the board where we may disagree with one another, and I'm okay with that, with it disagreeing, and I certainly feel comfortable with this particular body to feel free to disagree with, and, because we have some pretty amazing people here. With that being said, I do disagree with many of you that I believe that, again, on a personal note, I'm not a person that is pushed easily into making quick, what I feel is a knee-jerk decision. And echoing Tom as well, that I think there's a process that we followed before with other matters. I'm not seeing why we wouldn't follow it with this one as well. I feel pushed. I feel rushed. I don't feel comfortable with this decision. I'm fine that we're talking about it. I think that's important. I think it's really important that we're talking about this with the community being able to see it. But I think we need time to make sure that we get the proverbial ducks in a row before we go or move any further with this. I need to be able to, we all do, I guess, but I feel particularly strong about this issue to be able to respond to those that have advocated to me about their concern. And that concern is also among it is safety. And the one piece that I challenged a group with last time was I might be able to get on board with such a matter if we can ensure that every step has been taken to make sure that we don't hurt or damage or influence in a negative way one student in our school district. And I don't believe we're there yet. Can we get there? I don't know. But I certainly would like to talk more about it. I'd like to look at making sure that we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's as it relates to the policies. And ultimately, I want to hear more from the community. I think we've fallen short with that. I mean, I don't want to be here all afternoon, but there's a number of situations in terms of accessibility for those that have strong thoughts, both sides. The website was down for a while, so a group of people referenced me right before the meeting that they weren't able to communicate or find the appropriate email because our website was down. I didn't know it was down, but apparently it was, and that impeded some of them from communicating to us. So there's a number of things when you try to shoehorn something in terms of time that are missed, and I don't want to miss anything as it relates to this particular issue. And then finally, again, is I want to make sure that we're caring for those under our watch, the students, as I mentioned, but also the faculty and staff. There's just a lot of questions that I have that, yeah, might be into the weeds a bit, but what about that maintenance worker that Tom referenced? And if he's a person that is working on sobriety and isn't wanting to be around alcohol, then what do we do as a school district where all of a sudden now he or she is having to clean up alcohol after an event? And, is that going to cause some? I don't know, maybe not, but is it respectful to us to ask him or her to be cleaning up alcohol? I know it seems a little bit silly perhaps, but those are the things that go through my head that we haven't really thought through. And I love the Lakes Area Music Festival. We've attended it ourselves. Our kids go to it. I see no reason why we would stop. But there's just some things that I don't want to worry about when we bring my kids. And alcohol is one of them I'd rather not deal with. That's a personal side that I bring to the table. And so finally, where I'm at, I think we need time. I think we need to follow the process that we have set. I feel that we need to make sure that we're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And I'd also like to have an environment where we're all here as a board as well to be able to have this conversation before we move any further.
Further discussion?
There's one issue that keeps coming up and I just need maybe some clarification around it. I keep hearing that this group is trying to rush it through, and I don't know that that's the case. This group has been asking us for months, I think, or let me ask you, Chair Nelson, has this group not been asking us for months to get on our agenda? and didn't get on our agenda until 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. So I
was
just want to be clear, as
At
I
least
hear that being
one
said
previous
repeatedly.
board
and-
meeting, regular board meeting where we didn't put it
I
on.
think it was January or February.
Yeah, that was my understanding, is this group's been trying to get on the agenda since January. So if there's any sort of rush, which I don't feel rushed in my decision, I just want to, I think, to be transparent, we can't keep saying this group is trying to rush us.
Right. And the maintenance person has to be there whether or not, I mean, that's not an additional cost for us at all. And
I feel like there's, yes, we need to set some mutual expectations, maybe a procedure that maybe the alcohol comes in with the caterer, leaves with the caterer, as does all the garbage.
It does.
That's made up of that. That a majority of the audience is of legal age, that we lock all the doors to the school. I think some of these things I would feel more comfortable about if I knew this is the expectation of the group that's coming in, and we've got mutual understanding about what that looks like to have an event.
I would for sure want to revise our contract if we have a contract with the Lake Area Music Festival to include some of that stuff.
And to Director Hagelin's point, I don't see this as a one-off. I feel if we're going to address this, we need to address this for everyone that might bring this request to us. I think Lake Area Music Festival has been very proactive for the community at large and the other groups that they may or may not know they're representing that have an interest in this. But we need to be mindful of that too as we're putting out these expectations. But I'm comfortable, I read through the adjustment to the policy, and if we're gonna take 3 more meetings to kind of read through that and make any additions or corrections to that, I'm comfortable with that, but I'm comfortable how it looks today, knowing that there will be additional guidelines or procedure added to that from an administration standpoint.
What I've brought forward to Anne Marie is that we would be prepared in June to bring forth for a first reading, because this is a revised policy. Technically, you can do it on one, but we always do a reading and then an approval. And the board can do however you decide you want to do, but we would meet with a few of you ahead of time to determine what the parameters should look like. We would bring forth the first reading at the June meeting, and it could be approved in July if you wanted it approved before any alcohol ever came into that building. Or if you wanted to do the 3 readings, you could do that, but the dates that Lake Area Music Festival has talked about would already be involved. So that would be up to you as well. Technically, you could easily do it in 2 and have it in place before any alcohol ever came into that building. And it would be the things that it would come in and out with the caterer, that doors would be locked so they could not access the building, that they would provide their law enforcement in the building and grounds. I remember at the last meeting you talked about what if alcohol was just upstairs or in the black box, but it wasn't out in the front. If that's a parameter that you felt was necessary, we could set some of those and have that conversation to the policy in June.
And I would like to see it, and I'm not sure if it's just summer, but when school is not in session. I would like that to be part of it. And,
So when school is not in session?
and that'll have to be defined better.
Does that mean like holiday break too?
That's what we would have to define.
Okay.
I feel that we're at this stage here, is I think it's clear to me where the votes are, or where they're gonna fall, and that's fine. But I feel that the process we're in, we're throwing things in at the end that we want a part of a potential policy change that we're gonna be asked to vote on, that we're just kind of throwing things in on here at the end. And I just don't feel comfortable with that, with just the process. I don't think the optics of it are the best for our community to see us, something that to me, and that some very clearly take this very seriously, and some in our community see this as something that could be potentially be, at the very least, hurtful And, or unsafe. So for us to be kind of last second here throwing a few things in that we're then gonna have to vote on, I just don't feel comfortable with that. I mean, we sat here and we talked about the ceiling that we just found out after a certain processes and it going through the project oversight committee, and we still are learning things that are a bit surprise to us in that process even now. And it was just a ceiling height. And it's that type of thing that concerns me about this process, that I feel we just need some more time. And I don't necessarily mean within the Lake Superior Music Festival timeline, but in terms of us as a board to be able to make sure that we're covering all our bases when it comes to this.
Well, what I added in as far as when school is not a session is to make it stricter, to really limit. So I feel like that is helpful.
Oh, no, I think that's great. I'm not saying that was a bad
So,
idea.
yeah, so I'm just saying, I want to keep it tighter and as tight as we can, and then if we think we can loosen it up, if we want to, and we maybe never want to. Policies are living documents. We can change any policy whenever we want to, so they're living documents. So I think we can continue to work on this, but to make it a very tight policy right now would be important to me. Because I do have some of the concerns you have, Charles, but I worked them through with people I know, and I'm comfortable with allowing this exception or this change.
And I do think some of the things that we're talking about are policy language, and some of them are just mutual expectation guidelines of use that are not necessarily, we're a policy body and we can give advisement to administration on how we'd like things to be handled. And I think some of that can be carried out in a different way too, but there definitely are things that belong in that policy that we've mentioned here today.
Well, before we venture too much more into discussion, I guess maybe we need a motion on the table, because we are venturing down that discussion line. And I guess I would make a motion to bring forth changes to policy 902 to allow, to change this policy. I guess I don't know how specific we want to get, because we're talking about policy versus procedure language. So I guess I would make a motion to amend this procedure to allow alcohol to be served in certain situations, with language to be brought forward at our next meeting.
I will second that.
Did you get that, Janet, or should we?
I have to bring forth changes to policy 902 to allow changes to the policy which would allow alcohol in the Gitche-Zebe.
I think it's to amend the procedures and bring forth the policy on June 13th, isn't it? You kind of said two
To
things,
amend the
but the
policy
second one you
and the
went back.
to amend the policy and
Procedures
bring
and
forth the
then
procedures.
Yeah, I think
The
we
other
as
way
a board
around.
need to amend the procedure, right?
Amend the policy. We need to amend the
Excuse me,
policy.
amend the policy, excuse me,
Yeah.
and then we would give direction on procedure.
Okay.
Correct, sorry. To amend the policy.
Okay, so we have a motion from Director Sjogren to amend policy 902 to allow alcohol to be served in the Gitche-Zebe based and create procedures for that policy,
And a
amended
revised
policy.
contract.
And a revised contract. Yep,
Amenable to that wording, yep,
okay.
thank you for your help. There's a lot
Okay,
that goes
and
into
Director
it.
Spear?
I will still second that.
Is there a procedure document that's separate than a contract document?
Let me look at it. What is 902? I've got it here.
I don't think there currently is.
And maybe we'll find don't need procedures, but I think we do, probably will.
I think so too, but
Yeah.
again, that comes
Yeah.
Right
with
now,
staff, not
right
with
now
board.
it's the
Yeah.
same except for the agreement that they sign in order to use the facility. So that's separate. That's where the procedures would be
Okay.
different. And so,
So,
In the agreement.
right,
in the
and
agreement,
then in the agreement.
okay.
So it's two separate documents,
Correct.
procedure document.
And,
Yep.
okay,
And we would bring forth, well, we'd probably meet with some of you if you're interested in being on this to bring forth the language at the June 13th meeting.
okay.
for
Yeah, and I'd
first
participate in that. I
reading.
mean, if we're recommending a change, I think I take responsibility for helping to draft the language change.
But there's lots of pieces to this because it'll be the prices, it'll be the contract and the language, and it'll be the policy. So that'll all have to jive on June 13th for the first reading. So it'll be a big task, actually.
Okay.
But
So we have a first from Director Schroeder, a second from Director Spear. Further discussion.
So what are we approving? Or what are you voting to approve or deny?
Revising the policy, revising the procedures, which is really the contract they sign.
No, it's two
No,
separate things.
it's, okay, and then revising, there was a third thing,
the fees.
the fees.
The other thing that I haven't heard anybody say, but are you approving Lakes Area Music Festival to have alcohol on the dates that were brought forward at the last meeting?
Well, this would allow them to. This,
I mean, they're gonna move in that direction, knowing we're moving in this direction. I'm assuming that's a nod for them
How
without
do
us.
you do that when you don't
I don't
know
know.
what the revised contract and the revised procedure is?
Right, I agree. I'm not
It just-
understanding how we could do that.
And just to clarify again,
Oh.
is there a separate procedure document and a separate contract document?
Why don't you come up here, so.
well, and Lakes Area Music Festival already has a contract with us, and they already have those dates reserved, so they already have it.
Right, right, and we just have a facility use form for facility users to fill out. Our facility coordinator would have given them, price breakdown for all of their different things specific to their events, so, if we wanna add additional requirements, like they have to, we have to pay security, we'd have to decide if we're making those arrangements or if we're putting it on them to, contract with the security company and what
So
kind of.
we don't currently have a contract that spells that
It's
out.
an agreement, a form that they fill out, yeah.
Okay, and we don't have a separate procedure document.
Not really,
It's more in that agreement, isn't it?
yeah, because there's an amendment to the policy 902 that spells out all the different price structures. So it's really actually two kind of separate pieces in the school board policy.
902A, I think it's called,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
I think it's two separate issues. I think that we would need to, when Chair Nelson's comfortable, call the question on this, and then we might need a separate piece of action stating that should this proceed and we're able to put it in place, that any current agreement that we have in place, that there would need to be an amendment to that agreement before this, you know what I mean? Because they need to, there's a whole new set of rules then, so there would need to be an amendment to their agreement before they'd be able to proceed with alcohol service and sales. And that may or may not happen in time, I don't know, but I just want to not muddy the waters. I mean, we're acting on a policy right now, and I want to make that clear. I'm not making this motion for the Lakes Area Music Festival. I'm making this motion because I believe that it is something we can responsibly move forward with. I think the Lakes Area Music Festival is a whole separate issue from this.
Yeah, but I'm seeking clarity. You made a motion to bring back revisions to the policies, to the procedure, and to the contract. And I'm still uncertain. Doesn't sound like we have all three of these documents. So I'm confused as to what the policy even
Well, I
is,
guess that, it's,
what the motion is.
as a board, I think we have control over the policy. I think the procedures follow. So I maybe that's what we're saying is the expectation is with a new policy in place, that in order, and I would, even though I'm making this motion, even before I could feel comfortable voting yes to actually change the policy at the next meeting, I would need to see all the other backfilled pieces in place as well.
So that the procedure may fit into the agreement. I mean, there may be, you know, we need to ensure that we have mutual expectations on these 7 things, and that becomes part of the procedure that's in the agreement.
They would have to agree to the revised agreement that the board comes up with.
Right, and anything that, you know, Jennifer gives them ahead of time is always kind of an estimate anyway, because sometimes things change with an event, you know, as far as what, you know, fees we might be charging or whatever. So we would just redo that whole estimate for them too, and then we'd probably have to look at the agreement that, you know, we signed. We used to have a mask requirement in it, and we removed that, you know, so we'd have to add something, a question to that, I guess, so. And then,
So I think the agreement they currently have signed is based on our current policy and our current agreement, and so that would not cover food, alcohol.
right.
And so if they want that, they have to sign a new agreement. So I don't even know if we would need a separate motion for that.
No, we
Yeah.
wouldn't normally
I
make a
think it
motion
would be
for.
more, you know, I would look for guidance on our procedures, like what are we gonna require if this is allowed to happen, then what things do we require them to do? What other, you know, do we limit it to
Right.
certain space? Do we, do they need to come before the board? Anyone who wants to serve alcohol at an event, would you want them to get board approval or superintendent level approval, or what level, you know, is making that approval? Because like you mentioned earlier, events can really vary, and so safety at different events would probably be potential concern, so, or more of a concern.
Okay,
Thank you, Emery.
further discussion? I think I've said we've had a motion in a second several times now, so. Are you clear, Superintendent Larson? Yeah, okay, okay. So we have a motion from Director Sjogren, a second from Director Spear. I think we've had discussion, but I'm just gonna throw it out there one more time. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-2. Thank you, everyone. Next up, we have informational superintendent's report.
All right. Thank you very much. That we will get on that right away and be prepared to bring forth some extensive work on the 13th, so thank you for that. Couple of things. I want to thank Chair Nelson for bringing forth the moment of silence today. It's been a very hard day in our district and in all districts throughout the nation, and I'm sure throughout the world, in what happened at Robb Elementary School again yesterday. I do want to take this time again to thank our community for their commitment to the safety and security in our buildings through the referendum, because after this meeting, I'm going to finalize some details on a letter that I'll be sending to our staff and our families, assuring that many of the different protocols that we've put in place as a result of that. It feels really good to know that we have all these things in place, including safe and secure entrances, keyless entry that can be tracked and monitored at all times. We have more than 360 additional security cameras that law enforcement can access as needed. We've also committed to 2 school resource officers. You guys just approved one of those again about a couple meetings ago, plus additional security staff in all of our buildings. And all of our buildings have lockdown zones, so we can lock down certain portions of the building that we never had before. We also have collaboration with our local law enforcement to respond to any securities that we need within our community, and they're great partners, and so I really appreciate that. I have made calls to our police departments within our communities, asking them just to make sure for the remainder of the school year that we have that police presence, which is part of a great collaboration to keep our community safe and our school safe. And again, many of these things weren't in place, at least in all of the buildings beforehand, and so I will be sending this letter out, and also just to keep all the students, the staff, and the families at Uvalde Consolidated Independent School District in your thoughts and prayers as we move through this really difficult time. We have 2 weeks left, not even. Just shortly, I see some moms almost tears in their eyes right now, knowing how quickly it's coming. But in the next week and a half, we'll have a lot of exciting opportunities to celebrate our kids. Today, we have the GED graduation at Central Lakes College, and we appreciate that partnership to ensure that these people get their high school diploma so that they can go out and make a difference. We have our district writing recognition tonight, where we're going to celebrate all of our kids this evening who have just done some outstanding pieces of writing because of the instruction they've received at our school. Next Thursday, we have the LEC graduation at the LEC gym at 2 o'clock, followed by the BLC graduation at Tornstrom at 4 o'clock. That's Thursday. And Friday, June 3rd, at the Don Adamson Field at 7 o'clock will be the graduation of our senior class. Hard to believe that next Friday is coming that quickly. I also want to remind the board that at the June 13th meeting, it'll be my last meeting, and you're really sending me out of here with a big bang, because we're going to have the policy that we just talked about, 902. We're also going to have the budget update with the preliminary budget for the coming school year, and we'll have the Blueprint 181 budget so that we can make sure that that's all finalized before I leave. So we got a lot of work to do between now and June 13th to have
get our money's worth.
yeah, I guess so. It's like, you're not even gonna let me leave with an easy meeting. So anyway, that's really what I have today. And then to remind everyone that on June 21st at 2 o'clock will be our final bid opening. 13 buildings done over the course of 4 years, or since 18, so 4 years. So.
I think we're going to have to schedule a special board meeting in June, just so it's not your last one.
Have to.
I can't believe your last one is in 2 weeks.
last one in 2 weeks.
Okay, I just want to add a couple of other things. June 15th is a retirement party for Superintendent Larson at the Gitche ZB at 3:30. So everyone's invited to take part in that. And also just to remind people that 5th Street is closing for the summer on June 6th. So it'll be a little different around there. And finally, for those of you that can stay, I did bring dilly bars to celebrate. I don't know if I have enough for everybody, but to celebrate the birthdays from last week of Assistant Superintendent Heidi Hahn and Superintendent Lane Larson, who have birthdays within 2 days of each other. So.
And we're 10 years apart, so we said we'll never forget how old the other one is.
And today is
Sarah's birthday.
Oh, she better for sure get a dilly bar.
Dilly bars for Sarah too. Happy birthday.
But anyway, and I think that is all. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second. Third.
We have a first from Director Hagan, a second from Director Blackletts. All in favor, say aye.